Just averted a crisis there. Hope everybody's okay. Now, whenever I go through a crisis personally, like getting abandoned in a valley during a snowstorm or some such, I usually just spring back as if nothing happened, like a spring chicken. I'm of course aware that other people tend to get more traumatized than me. I don't judge them for that. I'm here to provide solace in a time of great despair. There's a lot of emergencies happening. Now, I have been accused of being numb. As if I don't care. And I think that's unfair. It's just I have a lot of control over my responses to things. That's good. Right? What do you want from me, really? You want me to lose my shit? I mean, just give me a break. There's emergencies all over the world. I can only show up at so many at any given time. And I walk in and shit's everywhere. It's like a cyclone powered through the room. People look at me with the richest expressions on their faces. It's utterly bedazzling to witness. Because in that moment, I'm seeing something, I'm seeing something. But I didn't see the last emergency that I went to. They pay me a lot of money. And what I want to do is basically create a coliseum of sorts with this money. Because when you can go anywhere in the world and basically solve the problems by walking through the front door, as I do, and this is not an arrogant thing, it's just how I comport myself, how I orchestrate the interior energy, how I manifest it moment to moment. I want to create a coliseum. And I'm thinking I want people to come to me. I think that that's where I can be most effective. A healer. Now, I didn't always want to be a healer because I just thought healers were wussies, for honest, Just not going to tell it to you any other way. I thought if you're a healer, you're automatically a pussy. What can I say? There are a lot of pussies who are healers. I can't help it. That's just the way it is. And it doesn't mean that I have to be a pussy. Because what I'm trying to heal has nothing to do with all that hyper-feminized energy that these guys seem to channel. In this coliseum, it's not your typical Roman coliseum where the gladiatorial shows or like that, nothing like that. I call it a coliseum because it's the home of Colossus. The home of Colossus. Now you may wonder, who is Colossus? Well, I'm Colossus. And again, I'm not being arrogant with you. I'm just telling you how it is. What's happened is that there's been this massive diminishment of the human race. That's why I'm flown around in this Learjet that's capable of Mach 5. And evidently word has gotten out that I can walk into a room or a stadium, doesn't matter, and just heal people. But again, that's not me tooting my own horn. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. It is hard for people to accept because most healers are just pussies, right? They're like, you're an egocentric, narcissistic asshole with borderline personality disorder. There's no way that you can be that effective. Anybody who tells me that is going to be the first person that I need to heal. Because look at all the heaps of projections. What they see is somebody who just doesn't compromise his own power. And therefore they think I'm the devil. Because I'm not a pussy. Like them. Or the men that they know. This world has been burnt to crisp. You won't even recognize the world. You think you do, but you're not seeing it accurately. You're gonna need to take my word for it. I'm the one who's traveling around and seeing what I'm seeing. Do you know why I can heal people like this? That my very constitution is medicinal? Do you know why? I nauseate you. Why someone like me is anathema? Well, I'll tell you why. I was buried underground for 100 years, being me. I was the last of a series of martyrs. There was one before me. And of course, he was annihilated, just as the string of martyrs before him. But you notice a pattern, of course. All these martyrs were men. And they thought, evidently, that burying me alive would end the lineage of martyrs. You know what kept me alive for 100 years, buried underground? If I told you, you'd never believe me. But I'm gonna tell you. See, 99.99999% of people who would be buried underground would naturally die. Can't breathe, can't eat, no water. Why did I survive? Why? Because the rhizome of electricity that exists in the earth. This is a rhizome of electricity here. And it's orchestrated so that this is a symphony of lightning. And now I'm healthy and you can see it, and maybe you think I'm a little vain, arrogant, whatever. But the truth is that my kind hasn't existed for 1,000 years. So there's no accident that you have a very hard time even looking at me, much less listening to me and feeling me. There's been one of us at a time for 1,000 years. And for those last 100 of those 1,000 years, I've been buried. Now, when I was getting buried, I was panicking. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't know that I would survive. I thought that was the end. And not just the end of me, but the end of the lineage of martyrs. See, the human race had become intolerant of people like me. Not because they were naturally intolerant, it's only because they had been indoctrinated to be intolerant. That was the problem. So 1,000 years ago, they rounded us up, put us in camps, and pulled the trigger. Now, I was not obviously one of those people. I didn't come along till much later, hundreds of years later. and I was a genetic anomaly. But what's great is genetic anomalies like this have unusual abilities. And I found my mentor. I sought him out. I don't know how. It's like the homing ability of a carrier pigeon. You just know when you go. So I found him over there in Greece, in some kind of Eastern Orthodox chapel, being himself, being raggedy, long hair, loincloth, famished, absorbed, totally masculine, completely transcendental, trying to reverse engineer the global apathy that had beset the human race and emasculated all humans, hyperfeminizing the entire species. He was the only masculine man left. And you would think, why isn't he out there doing X, Y, and Z? Well, he was out there doing X, Y, and Z. In the theosphere, he was in a plane, a plateau of pure spirit, trying to penetrate and repolarize the planet that had been hyperfeminized. He tried to disseminate his masculinity across the planet and shift things for the better, because, as he understood very well, that a planet without masculinity is a hyper-neurotic planet. No nervous system can settle and relax and release and feel its indigenous joy, feel its natural heart. So I went up to my soon-to-be mentor, and I knelt down behind him as he was praying at the altar, which was his way of hyper-masculinizing the planet. I didn't know that, of course. It took me years to understand that's what he was doing. And I addressed him thus: Master, I am here. Yes, I know. I've been looking for you, and I have no idea how I found you, but I'm here. Yes, I know. You found me just as I found him. Master, I did not know what to do. I need you to tell me what to do. You need to just kneel. And you need to stay there for a year. Yes, Master. Now, I was smart enough to know that I wouldn't die if I were there kneeling for a year behind this man who didn't even turn around to greet me. He was so absorbed in prayer, who knew I was there, who probably called me there just as I'm calling you now. So I stayed there and I knelt for a year. And what happened in that year was so phenomenal that I have no words to describe it. But by the end of that first day, there was a stream of plasmic electricity going straight through right here, what is called the third eye. And once it went into the third eye, it just went right up through the crown of my head, up into the heavens. And I could see clearly that electroplasmic current was coming from my master. That while he was receiving it from whatever he was receiving it was going up into the sky and going through back his head into mine. And so for a year, we just stayed in that place and we had a telepathic conversation through the electroplasmic current between us. And I asked him all sorts of questions. Master, what is going on with the Earth? The Earth has been castrated. There are no men left. You and I are the only men left. There is a plague of disinformation and propaganda that turned the whole race against men. Even men turned against men, vilified the most masculine, so that those men who turned against men were not men. They were simply males. Males. And all these males and all these females hunted down the rest. And while a masculine man might take on a few humans at a time, he's obviously no match for millions. And so I stay here in this chapel on this island, praying in my loincloth. People think that I'm just some delusional old man. They do not realize that I'm the only masculine man left on the planet. Until, of course, you arrived. You were born. You were materialized to succeed me. Thank you, Master. How did I get materialized? I don't understand how I was born, why I'm here. I materialized you. Just as you will materialize your successor in time. When it is the right time. Long after I am gone. And so we stayed communicating like that for a year. And then he dissolved. Pure energy, pure electricity. Return to source. And I've been wandering the earth ever since. Now, because this is a lineage, there are abilities that are transmitted from one martyr to the next. The abilities go through the current, the electroplasmic current, from one master to one student or one disciple. And so the abilities gather and are passed on to the next generation. So even while you might think that I'm arrogant to say that I'm so gifted, I'm just going to tell you it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the fact that I've had several masters before me accumulating these gifts and transmitting them to their disciples, and now it's here. Now the gift that I have, in addition to the gifts that I've been given, is to simply walk into a room and penetrate. Now, 1,000 years ago, this was nothing. Plenty of men had this gift and capacity. It's nothing that was outlawed. It was not regarded as miraculous, because that's what happened. Those who realized what was being outlawed saw it for what it was. You wouldn't outlaw anything that was worthless. You would outlaw whatever threatens the established order. And then people naturally deduced that, oh, this must be something so extraordinary, exquisite, magnificent, miraculous. What happened is now that there's only one masculine man left on the planet. Wherever this masculine man goes, people start to heal. Now you may wonder why I haven't been hunted down and killed. Yes, it's quite a miracle, I will admit. But when you're buried in the earth for 100 years, and you haven't died, then you start to realize something. You start to realize that you are electricity itself. And so, one of the abilities that has been bequeathed to me from my masters is that anybody that would come to incapacitate me is incapacitated in turn. Their volition is turned against them. Their desire to exterminate me is turned against them. It's brutal, but it's either me or them. And it already was me for 100 years. So you might want to excuse me if I go ahead and take care of the people who would be taking care of me, if you know what I mean. And the great thing is that all the masters live inside me now. We all live inside you. So anytime I want to have a conversation with my master, it's easy. I just kneel. And I ask him for guidance. And he is the one who connects me to the other masters up there. The so-called ascended masters, if you will. Just one lineage of millions. We're surrounded by millions of lineages of ascended masters. Also known as angels, benevolent extraterrestrials, multidimensional entities, interdimensional entities. I'm talking about the good ones, the benevolent ones. Master, now that I have risen from the earth and am no longer buried, I'm going to continue the work. I need your guidance. They will all come after you. Every one of them. They will seek to exterminate you, and you know this. But when you were in the earth for 100 years and realized your true identity as electricity, you will now see their electricity when they come towards you. Their whole organism is an orchestration of electricity. But they don't know that, like you know that. They don't control that in themselves like you control it in yourself. So when they approach you to annihilate you, just put out your finger and tap their electricity, and all that electricity that was come to murder you will go right back into them, and they will die. Because as you know, and all of us truly know, there is no reason for them to try to kill you, murder you. You are simply bringing back something that was lost a long time ago. And when it was lost, the entire planet fell apart. And we were perpetually enslaved. And this lineage of martyrs is the last hope. Thank you, Master. And when you enter into the rooms with all these dying human beings, make their electricity come back. That's why they're dying. They do not feel any electricity outside of themselves because it's all the same. You're the one difference. You're the one opposite. You're the one pole that can charge them all. Thank you, Master. And so there it is. There it is. So before you call me arrogant or presumptuous, I have submitted to my Master, and I am now submitted to the entire human race. They're dying. When there is no complementary polar energy out there, then the energy in here starts to die. At first it gets very neurotic and chaotic and confused and anxious. And then it starts to die. What does that mean to a coliseum full of people? It simply means that that energy drains out of them back into the earth. It's not finding the polar opposite energy, and there's no reproduction and multiplication of energy together because there is no opposite. There is no male to the female. There is no masculine to the feminine. So that feminine just withdraws from the organism because it's not being answered and goes back into the earth. And that was the plan all along, to sterilize all beings on the planet after they had been exploited for hundreds and thousands of years. It's about the soul. The soul needs the polar opposite. What we call the opposite. It's really just the complementary antipody. North and south, east and west, up and down, black and white. But not good and evil. Evil would get rid of the polarities. Good understands their value. So where that leaves us now is, it's like those Tesla lightning spheres that you see in the museums. There's one pole in the center, and then all this plasmic electricity goes out in all these directions and into the sphere from the center. Let this be a lesson to you going forward. They are going to try to continue to exterminate the masculine energy. If you're a male, don't allow it. If you're a female, call it out. I want every single man alive to start to feel that electricity again inside. Not just the feminine, let that go. It'll be there if you need it. But start to feel the lightning inside. And do not let yourself be buried in the earth, because you may not survive. like I survived. Now the lineage must remain alive. And now is the time for no more martyrs. I am the last of the martyrs. It's time for us to own this energy and no longer condemn this energy. Because it is the lightning that inseminates of the earth.